The reality is that they are the buyers of most of the product that isn't exported. And some of the product that is exported, they buy and use outside of Ireland. So yeah, I mean, the supermarkets are the guys that the farmers love to bash, and sometimes they're right to do so. Sometimes there are cases where primary producers and small food companies are abused by large retail outlets that have, of course, huge economies of scale and huge purchasing power, and so have an unhealthy level of power over the food producer, who in many ways has to dance to the tune of the retailer almost regardless of what conditions are on offer. That is something that I'm concerned about. In opposition, my party put together what's called a fair trade bill, which would set certain restrictions, put certain restrictions and regulations in place around the relationship between the food producer and the large retailer, in many cases multinational, that they're dealing with. Because I think you do need to have some rules that can level the negotiation in terms of the capacity to negotiate on both sides, rather than it being dominated by one side, which is what happens at the moment. So we're looking at that, but I don't want to do that in a way that will make retailers look outside of Ireland to actually purchase their products, because it becomes too much hassle to actually source food here. I mean, that would be a disaster, and it would result in an awful lot of retailers looking to buy beef and dairy products from Northern Ireland, for example, to bring it down into supermarkets in the south. That's the last thing we want. So it's about getting a balance here between ensuring that food producers, whether they be primary producers like farmers, or whether they be small-scale processors like yogurt manufacturers or cake makers, or convenience food processors, that ensuring that they're not abused in their relationships with retailers, but at the same time keeping Irish food competitive. So there is a balance to be had there, and it's popular for me to paint retailers as the bad guys all the time. The reality is they spend huge sums of money buying food in Ireland. There are a lot of food producers that actually have made a lot of money and have built successful businesses by supplying to the retail sector. But I think there are also cases of abuse that need to be stamped out. Things like hello money, things like forcing primary producers to buy shelf space at unreasonable cost, that type of thing. Things like retailers demanding unreasonable price cuts, knowing that the food producer has to do it because if they don't, they have no other retailer to go to. That type of behaviour shouldn't be happening. And to be fair, I think there are also a lot of good news stories around how retailers liaise with their producers. I remember speaking in a Musgraves conference recently to the managers in Musgraves who actually manage the relationship between food producers and the shops. For example, because of the banking crisis and the credit crunch that many small businesses find themselves in at the moment, Musgraves are actually providing finance for a lot of their producers at the moment to actually provide a form of banking or financing, if you like, for expansion and growth and the rest of it. So, there are good news stories there, and that goes for all of the retailers. Next year, whether we like it or not, I have to make savings of 60 million euros in my department in terms of current expenditure. I have to make savings of about 100 million euros in terms of capital expenditure. The following year, I've got to make 40 million euros of cutbacks in current expenditure. The year after, another 20 million. And so at a time when I have decreasing amounts of money to spend, we have to grow an industry. And that is not easy, because it'll involve me having to look at all of the expenditure within my department, from direct payment schemes like the disadvantaged area payments, like the new EOS scheme that we've just launched, like the existing REP schemes, and so on. But the commitment I will give to farmers in particular is that we will look at every piece of expenditure in my department and try and find savings through efficiencies and better ways of doing things, so that we can protect the direct payments to farmers as much as we possibly can, through what will be two difficult enough budgets in terms of the savings that we need to make. But while we're doing that, I hope the story for farming and for food, in terms of the new Common Agricultural Policy that's being put together, the Common Fisheries Policy that's being put together, and the agri-food industry in terms of its capacity to grow and expand and add value to its product. I think all of that will, I hope, more than outweigh any of the negative impacts that will go, that'll be required with the cutbacks that I need to make.